Hi there, Russell Bishop here, along with Nat Sharratt, welcoming you to the recording of our gratitude webinar from March 14th. We called this webinar Grumbling or Grateful, and we're glad you could join us and hope you enjoy the recording. God bless.
The creator of Insight Seminars with my teacher, John Roger, who is the founder with Russell, and he's done a best-selling book and multiple books, and also has been doing coaching for many years as well, and is still doing coaching. I don't know if you can see the links that we put up at the beginning, or if
We'll have
not,
to change that to everyone.
I can just do it right now. So
Okay.
there's Russell's. I don't know if you can still see mine, but I'll just re-put them up anyway, because both of us do coaching with people, and you can schedule a free session to discuss working with us and to just see how that works. And those links will be up there for you. I'm Nat, and I have known Russell for 20 of those, or maybe more than 20, but it's been a while now of those many years that he's been involved in this. As I worked with the co-founder, whatever the title is of Insight, John Roger, who's also a spiritual teacher of many of us. And I worked with him for many years, and then I ended up doing a very different life of a jewelry business, and now I'm back to this work of coaching. I also have a weekly newsletter that I put out through Substack, and you can get more information on my website about that. And we both work with people, and we did one of these events maybe a month ago or so, and it was so fun that we decided, let's do another one. And this time we're doing it about gratitude. So we're both, I think I can speak for myself, I'm very excited about being here. I'm very grateful to those of you who showed up to this event. So we're going to start by just closing your eyes and having a centering, a calling in the light. And so just bring yourself present wherever you are in this place, in this room that you are. And just notice your breathing, your breath. Notice the sounds or the quiet. And just bring yourself to that still point inside. And open to the divine flow of life, of loving, of that energy that is behind all creation. Anything that's on your mind, any disturbances, any things of the world, you can just leave them at the door. You can just let them go, put them down, put them into the light that's present. And that is the light of the Spirit. And you can just continue to move more into that awareness of who you are, and be open to the awareness of the things that you're grateful for. And even be open to the awareness of things you didn't know you were grateful for, but that may be a blessing in your life that you hadn't seen before. So that you can awaken more fully to all the blessings that are already present. Thank you, God. So it is.
So it is. So as you find yourself coming back here, we have a few sort of starter thoughts, and then we'll let this emerge as it does. Spirit brings information in from wherever it chooses to bring it. Our job is to be open and perceive it. But one of the things we thought we'd ask you to sort of think about as we prepare for this is, was there a time in your life where there was something that showed up as a challenge, or maybe it even seemed like a disaster? Maybe you didn't know how you're going to get through it, but today you can look back and you can recognize there was a lesson, there was a value, something you could be grateful for. And to that end, if you have a notebook or piece of paper, if you have things that pop to you as we go through here, that would be a good thing to track, because we may find that useful as we go along. I know in that notion of seemed like a disaster or a challenge, for me personally, an example, when I was growing up and in high school, my dad had a business, but he was a tool and die maker. He wasn't a very good businessman, so he went bankrupt twice. I wound up working pretty much full time all the way through high school. And he said, okay, so I'm going to make it up for you. I'm going to pay for university. So I started at University of California and the Davis campus. And the first day I started, he collapsed, wound up in hospital at the University California in San Francisco. He never left. He wound up with leukemia and he died a few months later. And that bankrupted the family for a third time. And all of a sudden, I was back on my own, and I was living in a beat up used car, which is all I had, and $6 to my name. Now, that has turned out to be a reference point that I can look back to over and over again. Whenever something shows up that says, oh my God, I can go, but wait a minute. You had $6 living in your car and no prospects for anything. And it seemed like it turned out okay. And in fact, if I look back, I never felt like I was in trouble, that just the circumstances were difficult. So for me, that's been a blessing of anytime my mind wants to go into, oh God, it's a disaster, I go, yeah, well, wait a minute. How did that compare to this? So that's one for me. Challenges and disasters. Now, you want to pose another one?
Yeah. And one of the things Russell told me that story as we were prepping for this, and it just reminded me of this quote from the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book that I'm going to paraphrase, which is that being broke is temporary, being poor is permanent. And it's just the idea that, it's a way that you're looking at the world. Being broke means you don't have money, and maybe you've been bankrupt. But being poor is an attitude. And it's a way of looking at the world. And so, there's been so many times in my life that I could reflect on, where there have been instances that were very difficult and that then led to me being grateful. In fact, I was actually considering that there's not a lot I actually regret in my life. I've loved my life. I'm grateful for the life I've lived. And if there was anything I regret, it's that it was my attitude. Because I had a lot of years, and I know that it's all perfect because I had a lot of years with my spiritual teacher and many of you, John Roger, and he was really fun and had a good time. But in those early years when I first started working with him, I had so much baggage and so much stuff that I wasn't always having a good time. And it's taken many years of working on things and letting go of things to finally get to that place of having a good time in my life and choosing that wherever I am. Because I've been in paradise. Look at this. Behind me is actually where I live. And it's paradise. And there have been times where I've been just not happy, just not a horrible attitude here in paradise. So it has nothing to do with my environment. I know that now. I've been out in the waves surfing and just literally punching the water, throwing a little temper tantrum, saying I'm going to quit, can't catch a wave, can't do this. And then in one of those times happened, actually, with the worst one happened when I was doing a coaching session with my surf coach, who's also an Olympic surf coach, and he called me out of the water. He's like, "What's up, Nat?" And I'm like, "I'm just having a rough day, and like I can't catch a wave to save my life." And he just sat me down. He's like, "Hey, just take a moment, be grateful. We're here, we're having fun. You're surfing. They're like, enjoy life. You're here to have fun. Yeah, we're working on things, but this is about enjoyment. This is about, so just be grateful." And I went out into the water and I started my gratitude statements, and I didn't feel grateful, but I started changing my perspective. And all of a sudden I was able to catch some waves. I wasn't surfing well, but I was finally able to it literally changed the physicality of my life and what I was able to do by just changing my attitude. And that's really something that was just like such a night and day difference. And I think there's something about changing how we look at things as difficult is bad. Difficult can be good. I mean, sometimes it's the difficulty that gives us the greater strength and the greater learnings and the greater lessons in our lives. And so that's the time to be grateful. And that's been my experience, is that if I could like change anything from my past, it'd be my attitude, so that I could have more fun, like with the people I loved who are gone. JR, John Rogers, passed away, and my friend Eric, I mean, we had a lot of fun, but also why not have more? So to me, it's like, have the people that I'm actually with, have the fun with them and have that attitude of gratitude. And so these days I write down in my journal when I'm having my chai in the morning every day. Some days I miss, but like consistently over the years, I write down a gratitude statement for the day. Because it's such a key factor in my life. Because I'd love to have more fun with the people I love.
There's a gentleman that lives here in Santa Barbara half the year, and the other half of the year he lives in Molokai. And his name, he goes by the single name of Mitchell. Mitchell was a cable car gripman in San Francisco back in 1970. The gripman, he's the guy at the back that holds the grip and it grabs the cable and pulls the cable car up the hill. And he's also the guy that gets to go ding-a-ding-ding, ding, ding, ding. I mean, it is the coolest job in the world. And especially if you're trying to, in his world, pick up dates. Everyone wanted to date the cable car gripman. So this one particular morning, he lived out in the Mission District of San Francisco, and he was riding his motorcycle to the cable car barn. He had just filled up the tank with gas. Unbeknownst to him, he hadn't quite screwed the cap back on tight. He's going through an intersection and a laundry van runs the stop sign, crashes into him. The gas tank explodes in his face. He had one of those helmets on that had no face mask, so it burnt his entire face off. And he had no gloves, and it burned all of his fingers and thumbs off, so that the only thing he had left were nubs about the size of your pinky fingernail. Pretty bad. Lots of rehab, many, many surgeries. Over a period of 3 or 4 years, he finally was recovered from that. And he moved to Colorado, where in a small town where he was elected the mayor in what he said was a landslide. He got all 12 votes. But he was a mayor, and he got invited to the annual mayor's conference that the president holds in DC. He was a pilot. He's taking off to go to the mayor's conference, and the plane, something goes wrong, it crashes on takeoff, and now he's paralyzed. So here's this guy completely disfigured, and now he's paralyzed. And he writes a book, and the book is called "It's Not What Happens to You, It's What You Do About It." And in the book, he said, before I was paralyzed, there were 10,000 things I could do. Now there's 9,000. Should I whine about the 1,000 I lost or celebrate the 9 that I have? And he's gone on to become one of the world's most sought after motivational speakers because he can roll out on the stage looking like this scary figure from a horror movie and inspire the hell out of people. So much so that 5 of the last 6 presidents have invited him to the White House to speak to the staff. You can probably guess which president didn't. I'll leave that one alone. But what a beautiful notion of gratitude. That there's no such thing. He doesn't do what somebody recently said to me is, let's not do a spiritual bypass on this. I said, what's a spiritual bypass? And that's where you go, oh, well, isn't it great I'm paralyzed? No, that's not what the gratitude is. The gratitude is for the ability to make the most out of what I do have, even if it seems diminished. So he went from this apparently limited experience to this limitless one. He's traveled all over the world and an amazing man. So he understands the spirit of gratitude to say very little about how impactful he has been and what a great mentor he's been for me over these many years as well. Which leads to a question. Any issues in your life right now that seem challenging, difficult? Oh my God, what am I going to do? For which later you might find gratitude is the appropriate answer. So just let yourself sort of noodle on that one too. And if something shows up, make a little note. So the first question was anything out of the past that was challenging, disaster laden, for which you can now find gratitude. Anything now for which gratitude will be the appropriate response, irrespective of what appears to be taking place. Nat, you got something else to add there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great story. And I would just say that it can be something little too. You know, I was just thinking of, you know, some days you're not productive, you're not in a funk, you're in a funk, you're whatever's going on. It doesn't have to be something really dramatic. You know, it can also just be, you know, things that happen in your daily life or that have happened today that may have not, there may be going on, and it's like, you know, I'm having a hard time. You know, yesterday I was out in the water and I was really dealing with fear. It was like, you know, 15-foot faces and it was scary, but like I've surfed that many times and it doesn't usually cause me fear, and it's causing me a lot of fear. And so it's like, okay, like fear is up. So, you know, and dealing with that today too, of just like, I wasn't going to surf and you know, there's a couple of my friends and they're like, hey, let's go. And I was like, okay, I'll go, I guess I'll catch a wave or two. Caught this incredible wave, but you know, just one of those things of like, sometimes things come up and it's not a big deal in life. But it's like, you know, just having the compassion with yourself and the attitude of gratitude of like, oh, this is like actually good. Sometimes when things come up inside of you that you're dealing with, it's actually a good thing, or can be if you have the right attitude, that you're using it for your upliftment, learning, and growth, and finding and looking at where that's coming from, and what is causing those things. So just finding the gratitude in the small things as well. It doesn't have to be some massive disaster going on in your life right now, because sometimes there's just not, which is great. That's to be grateful for.
Well, I think something that John Roger would have said often to us is when these kinds of reactions turn up inside, they're revealing to us an area of weakness or vulnerability. And the opportunity, from a gratitude perspective, is, oh, that's where that is. And now I know, well, now how do I go in and build strength in that area so it doesn't become what he often called a tyranny of weakness?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have something, Russell.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, back in the 80s, can everybody hear me okay?
I do.
I took this course with in the movement with Annette Lawrence and what was her husband's name at the time?
Howard Lawrence.
Howard. And it was about programming universal mind. And it was basically about a very charged 80 to 100 word programming about what it was that you wanted, and to get, it very clear and repeated 100 times or something like that. And I wanted, at the time I lived in Miami, and I wanted to be rich and famous in the art world, whatever that meant. And in a very short period of time, within 2 weeks, I was at an art show. It was a very funky, arty area called Coconut Grove in Miami. And this man walked up to me and handed me a business card. It said Harris Shapiro Fine Art Acquisitions or something. And that happens a lot when you're at a show with a couple 100,000 people. You have your booth and your work. And I just put it in my purse. I didn't do anything about it. I kind of forgot about it. And I got a phone call like about a week later, and the guy said, Harris Shapiro, I'm Harris Shapiro. I gave you a card and in the Coconut Grove Art Show. Don't you respond? I honest to God didn't remember any of it. Long story short, he said, I loved your work. I did like Asian mixed media work. He said, and I want to fly you and your husband, because Larry was at the show, to New York. And I would like to talk to you about working with you. And I was like, and I did it. I went to Manhattan. And this was a guy who was all business, super businessman. He never made eye contact with me. It was like a really unusual experience. We're sitting there at his desk in his office, and he's looking at some kind of a commodity tape reading thing on a screen while he's talking to me. The whole thing was a contract negotiation for 5 years. And he asked me what I wanted, and I wanted 2 one-woman shows in a year. I wanted X amount of whatever percentage for my paintings, which I believe was 50% of the sale.
50%, yeah.
And I had a show in Soho. And I have to tell you, it was like I walked into an alternate universe. It was all Japanese themed, and I love architecture. I love taking like an old factory and making it into art gallery with all the exposed. It was one of these really big spaces, and I did a bunch of paintings, and I brought them up there. And I remember feeling extremely nervous because I asked for something and I got it. And this was an investment company, and they did bronzes out of this. His name was Erte, and he was famous, and he was like 94, and it was me and 2 other guys. That was their roster of people. So I'm having a one-woman show, and I'm getting ready for it. And he came up to me and he said, he would never call me by my first name because he called me Martinique. My name is Lynn Martinique. I said, you could call me Lynn. But Martinique was exotic, so he called me Martinique. I felt like a peacock in this environment. And I don't think I was really very prepared. The interesting things that he said to me, I'm going to lunch and you need to come up with your pricing, and I need to make the brochure so people know the name and the amount of money. When he saw me in the Grove show, the little painting that he loved, because I remembered he liked this little 16 by 20, it was $250. And I had brought it with me. It went from that size up to something that might have been 5 feet by 6 feet. I have no reference point for any of this. And Larry goes, look, I went to school here in New York. You're in the big league. I'm like, so what does that mean? He goes, put 2 zeros on the end of everything. And now my heart's beating. I'm going, that's crazy. I did. I made the $250 one $2,500. And then it went up exponentially. The whole point of this thing was I asked for something, and it's what you just said, Russell. It seemed like every point of insecurity about being in an environment where I didn't have reference point really set me off. And I said, look, he's going to be back pretty soon. This is $2,500, and it was $250 2 weeks ago. And he said, yes, if you don't do that, it's not going to work, because he's going to take 50% of everything. Well, you know what? I did what he said. He came back from lunch. He said, "Give me the clipboard," and I gave it to him. And he took a red pen and he crossed out my pricing, and he added a few $100s to each piece.
700.
And I was like, I don't even have word for it. I feel like the point of this story is I asked for something and I got it, and I got an education that I couldn't have paid for, because it put me in an environment where it was beautiful. The one woman show was beautiful. It was invitation only. There were people serving all Japanese food, and the most expensive painting I think was about, I don't know, $13,000.
It was
14,000.
18,000.
Something I don't remember, but it was like I went from a street show into this place.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I did really well sale wise. But I don't know what they have in mind, because this is an investment kind of
Yeah.
place where, but the
Your
thing about
consciousness was expanded.
it was blown away, truthfully. And I'm going to
Nice.
tell you something. What really blew me away was how naive I was. I was a bumpkin, and a man came up to me. They wouldn't let me they would not let me communicate with the people. I had to go behind a poster table and sign things. But a man came up to me and he asked me, like he was an auctioneer, very rapidly. I knew he didn't care about me. He wanted to know my age, how long I'd been doing this, what my painting started out with, how long it took for me to get to the price, and da-da-da-da. And I kind of didn't want to be with him. So a sales lady came and took over, and I said, "What is going on with him? Does he want to buy anything?" She goes, "He's a finder. He invests for his clients. And you never see your paintings. It's not about that. It's about how fast the investment's going to increase." The long and short of it, I was with them for 5 years. And it was a lot of pressure for me. And
Yeah.
other artist friends that I had that did street shows said, "Why can't you make this work?" And I was like, I feel like I'm invisible. So I guess what I've learned along the way is, you can ask for what you want, and you can, like JR says it all the time, be careful, you might get it. And it seemed to me that I had I had a lot of lack running, a lot of unworthiness. How did I ever get here? I don't know how to operate in this world. And I'm very, very grateful, because in those 5 years, I knew when it was done, I'm not doing this. I don't want to do this. I went right back to street shows, and I made a lot of adjustments, but I knew that I needed a heart-to-heart kind of an interaction. I don't want to be looked at as an investment commodity kind of, but the art world is like that,
Yeah.
you know?
So you had a great experience. It expanded your consciousness, and you got more clear about what you really wanted to do with your art.
Yes, I really did.
Beautiful.
And all the glitz and the glamour is still there, and I can visit it, but I don't really want to live in it.
Yeah.
And I think you pointed up one thing that that I've been looking at lately also, which is in the comfort zone and being outside of the comfort zone. And I actually kind of renamed it the familiarity zone, because the comfort zone, it's like sometimes it's actually depressing and uncomfortable.
Mhm.
We're just familiar with it.
Right.
So we stay in it. And to me, what you're saying is that you use that creative force that's within you and created something, and learned from it, and it stepped you out of your comfort zone, but you learned a great deal and expanded from it, and you stepped out of the familiarity. And often we get into things to learn that we actually don't learn the things that we're familiar around and already know. We're the country bumpkin in the places we need to learn. And if you're not feeling like a little uncomfortable, a little unfamiliar, and a little like a country bumpkin, at least some part of your life, then, are you really stretching? Are you really like moving and still learning? And it can be subtle, but it's like there's always an opportunity to expand in your awareness. And that often brings up unfamiliar places, because you're going places, you're expanding into places that you don't know. And sometimes it's places that you're familiar with in a spiritual level, meaning like, it's like, oh, feels like home, but it's also unfamiliar because you haven't felt that as much in your life.
So building on that whole notion of familiar and comfort, I write a little bit about that in that new book, From Self-Talk to Soul Talk. And comfort zones often are not comfortable, but they are familiar, which is why people stay in them. And so an example I use is firefighters have jobs that are distinctly not comfortable. I mean, running into a burning building, it wouldn't be, oh yeah, it's a day at the beach. It's very uncomfortable, but they're very comfortable in it because they're familiar with it. They know how to respond. And people tend not to move out of their normal patterns only because they don't know how to succeed or be in the other way, in another way, in another world, in another expression, which we know a lot about visualization and affirmation. People hear that all the time. Some people say it's the secret. Some people say, well, poo-poo couldn't work. But there's actually huge neuroscience behind it all right now. And a friend of mine is named Jim Doty, D-O-T-Y. He's a world famous neurosurgeon at Stanford and a personal friend of the Dalai Lama. And he has an interesting book that you may find worth reading. It's called Into the Magic Shop. And he talks about how he went from a dirt poor, abused boy in the near Bakersfield, California, to becoming this world famous surgeon. But the process was a woman in a magic shop taught him how to visualize his life being different. And now he, as a neurosurgeon, he knows how the process of visualization actually changes your brain, and it changes the filters, and it allows us to discover opportunities that have always been there, but maybe we never saw them before. And part of that is learning how to be grateful for even growing up in that dirt poor environment. So there's a lot to that. Again, there's some of that's in my book, but you may find his book quite useful as well. Really powerful. And the more you practice visualizing a change, the more familiar it becomes. And sooner or later, it becomes uncomfortable to stay where you are because it doesn't match what is now the new familiar. Anyway, Christina, you have something to share? Can unmute yourself.
Hi, yes, thank you. I'm so glad that you're doing this. And Lynn, thank you for sharing. I'm also an artist, and as Lynn was sharing, and this is something I'm dealing with, it's growing myself inwardly to the opportunity so I can receive it. And so as the opportunities are getting bigger, I'm growing myself inwardly, which is doing my spiritual work, which is doing my gratitude, which is doing my essays, which is doing freeform, whatever shows up. And Russell, in alignment with what you were saying, you know, the elite athletes, the Olympic athletes, so much of the time is spent in visualization, and you know, they measure the brain waves, and you know, they grow muscle mass without lifting anything. It's a huge contributing factor. And so I'm very, very grateful. But I just wanted to add that about me. And I think all of us, that we have to grow ourselves beyond our former familiarity zone. I like how you define that, and into the greater, and being able to receive it. And gratitude for the whole process. And thank you.
Thank you. So one of the questions that Nat and I were kicking around was, it's one thing to look at something that happened in the past and what's the gratitude that we have for it now, where we may or may not have been grateful in the moment. Then we had that question, well, what's present now that may seem like a challenge or maybe difficult or unpleasant? And can you begin to find what the seeds of gratitude are in that? What's that pointing me to? Not as, again, the spiritual bypass, not the one that says, oh, well, spirit wants it, so therefore it must be wonderful. no, to truly find, where am I being directed? What am I being asked to learn? How am I being called forward? And as we were kicking that around, a good question showed up that Nat put on the table. It says, well, what have we become immune to? What's in our environment that is maybe so prevalent that we've gone unconscious to it? And it may be that seed of an opportunity. It may be the new familiarity that wants to come forward. So kind of thinking about three different thoughts as we move later towards a meditation. Challenges of the past, which turned out to have lessons that we're grateful for. Something that's happening now that may turn out to be a later form of gratitude. And then the other part is, so how have I become insensitive, immune, unaware, unconscious of what's in my environment? And, it's that old thing about smelling the roses. Do we even notice the roses enough to smell them? So
Yeah,
just more
and
things. Go ahead.
I just with on that note that Russell's talking about of the things we become immune to. I mean, I think that there's an epidemic of sorts of us, being immune to all the things we could be grateful for, because we live, many of us, like most people at this point, or most people at least that are on a Zoom call, live better than probably kings and queens used to live. I mean, you turn on the tap water and like you actually get water. You at nighttime you can flick a switch and there's electricity. I mean, just the little things that we have become immune to, that is incredible. Like it's absolutely astounding that if we were in some past life as a peasant, we wanted to be like the king, and now we're living better than them, and we're like, well, yeah, but I don't have whatever, I don't have a Lexus, I only have this beater. And it's like, yeah, but you got a car. Like they didn't have cars. Like I mean, it's just a matter of shifting attitude again, to that of gratitude. And so and it's easy to become immune. I mean, especially the things that we grew up with that have always been here for us, but on the scale of humanity hasn't been here. And it's like, so there's so much, like if you can't find things to be grateful for, it's like, well, there's just so much to be grateful for.
Well, at this point, it might be fun to do our little video.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's play it.
So I'll come back to you in a moment, Carol. We're going to do a little video right here. So let me pull it up and get it all ready. Come here. Okay, there you are.
I can't hear the video.
Whoops. My mistake. I forgot to the muting problem.
I can't hear it. Can you hear it? No,
No,
we can't
I still
hear it.
can't hear it. No.
Okay. All right. Let me try to figure out what I did wrong here. That's really bizarre. Let me go back into my share screen settings.
I think, and when you go to share it, there's a thing at the bottom that says optimize for video clip. I think you have to make sure that's checked.
Yep, that's what I forgot to do. I've only done this a few hundred times, so brother. Here we go.
when I watch TV, it's just some shows that are pretend, and when you explore, you get more imagination than you already had, and when you get more imagination, it makes you want to go deeper in, so you can get more and see beautiful things. Like the path. If it's a path, it could lead you to a beach or something, and it could be beautiful.
You think this is just another day in your life? It's not just another day. It's the one day that is given to you today. It's given to you. It's a gift. It's the only gift that you have right now, and the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you do nothing else but to cultivate that response to the great gift that this unique day is, if you learn to respond as if it were the first day in your life and the very last day, then you will have spent this day very well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open. That incredible array of colors that is constantly offered to us for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from moment to moment with clouds coming and going. We just think of the weather, and even of the weather we don't think of all the many nuances of weather. We just think of good weather and bad weather. This day, right now, is unique weather. Maybe a kind that will never exactly in that form come again. The formation of clouds in the sky will never be the same that is right now. Open your eyes, look at that. Look at the faces of people whom you meet. Each one has an incredible story behind their face. A story that you could never fully fathom. Not only their own story, but the story of their ancestors. We all go back so far. And in this present moment, on this day, all the people you meet, all that life from generations and from so many places all over the world, flows together and meets you here like a life-giving water if you only open your heart and drink. Open your heart to the incredible gifts that civilization gives to us. You flip a switch and there is electric light. You turn a faucet and there is warm water and cold water and drinkable water. It's a gift that millions and millions in the world will never experience. So these are just a few of an enormous number of gifts to which we can open your heart. And so I wish you that you will open your heart to all these blessings and let them flow through you. That everyone whom you will meet on this day will be blessed by you. Just by your eyes, by your smile, by your touch, just by your presence. Let the gratefulness overflow into blessing all around you. And then it will really be a good day.
Probably worth the wait.
It's a good video.
Yeah, Louis Schwartzberg is a beautiful man. I've gotten to know him and his art. His company's called Moving Art. In fact, he has a Netflix has 3 seasons of his 20-minute shorts that have no spoken words. It's just nature photography with music. Just beautiful, beautiful work. And he's got thousands of letters from parents of autistic children for whom watching his video with the music soothes them and brings them into peace. So if you ever need a bit of peace and you have Netflix, and if you don't, just go to movingart.com and you can see some of his work. It's beautiful.
Fantastic. And one of the things that it brought to mind is the other day I was scrolling through Instagram, social media, and I saw this video, this person asking someone a question. They're like, so if I gave you $10 million, you'd be really happy, right? And they're like, yeah, I'd be really happy. You know, and be like, you wouldn't be sad for a little bit, right? No, I mean, I'd be really happy if you give me $10 million. And they're like, well, what if the caveat was you wouldn't wake up tomorrow? And they're like, no, I'm not taking that. Like, if you're not gonna, if that's it for you tomorrow, like, I'm not taking the $10 million. And they're like, well, so what you're saying is that waking up tomorrow is at least worth $10 million to you. You know, and it's like, you know, it's kind of a tricky little question, but it does bring home the point of like how valuable this life is and this day, as the video was portraying.
So at this point, any questions or comments, observations, anything you want to share, any awarenesses, any awakenings, big or small? Again, at the bottom, there's a little button that says reactions. You just click the button and then below it, you'll see it says raise hand, and we'll see a little yellow hand pop up. Well, I see a virtual hand. Looks like Gary Goldman wants to share something.
Thanks, Russell. Thanks, Nate. Now, there is nothing. Is it Nate or Nathaniel?
It's Nathaniel or Nat.
Okay, I got it right. Yeah, thank you, sir. The great reminder. I had a few things. I do a show also called God Chronicles on Facebook, and there's a couple sentences I put on the gratitude. I wanted us to read them, and it reminded me of what you're all saying. It says there are only 2 ways to live your life. One is though nothing's a miracle. The other is though everything's a miracle. You know who said that?
Einstein?
Einstein said it, yes. So do we live our life as, oh, woe is me, and you know, nothing's right, the little things, or everything's a miracle? That takes a lot of practice and a lot of gratitude, doesn't it? It's a couple more. The only prayer I say now is thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I want this, I want this, I want this, but thank you. And you're all saying the same thing. And there was 2 more, and then I'll be done with this. Gratitude is a facet of love. Pretty good, huh? It's a facet of love. It's gratitude for all the good that God has provided all of us. Conscious awareness of God is our true happiness. To love and trust God and listen for his voice is the highest worship. Now, for some people that may make sense, and some people it may make sense. But for me, there's a saying is God is love. So when we're loving ourselves and others, that produces gratitude automatically. And finally, hold on right here. Oh, this is a quote by a singer. See if you know who it is. When I started counting my blessings, my whole life turned around. It's a country singer, older guy. Any thoughts? When I started counting my blessings, my whole life turned around. Want to take a shot at it? Older country singer, Willie Nelson. So the idea of gratitude and counting your blessings, gentlemen, thank you so much for this. This is a reminder for me that no matter what's going on, is to see where's the blessing in all this. And as some of us are involved in the movement of spiritual inner awareness, is the idea of Baruch Bashan, which is the blessings already are. And the spiritual director, current one now, John Morton, always talks about the blessings. So thanks for the reminder of how do we shift our attitude. It's not the issue. The issue is never the issue. It's how we respond to the issue is what you've been saying. So thank you for this reminder. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. As we were prepping this, and me and Russell were talking back and forth about gratitude and about what we're going to say, both of us just kept coming up with quotes that we knew about gratitude. And Russell made the comment, we could just sit here and tell quotes about gratitude because there are so many. And you know, that reminded me, you know, what you were saying, Gary, reminded me of that quote. I don't know who said it, but that the only thing, that gratitude is the only thing you can actually give back to God, and that you can give to God. So, you know, and then there's one thing also just like that came present with what Christina was saying earlier about opening more fully to the gratitude. Is that there was an investor guy that I was listening to an interview, and he was talking about that preparing yourself. And I think that's what Christina was talking about, preparing yourself for the blessings, for the greater blessings of that gratitude. And he was saying, you know, the opportunity is there for everyone. Everyone can see it, but not everyone's prepared for it. So you won't see it if you haven't been preparing yourself, you won't see it. And so to open yourself more to that is the preparation for the gratitude and for the greater blessings that come in. Because as you are more grateful in your life, then you'll see the blessings, and then you'll be aware of the opportunity for more.
I don't recall exactly how John Roger phrased this, because the memory cells have faded a little bit, but he would sometimes say, if you're going to ask for the blessing or ask for some increase in your life, you need to work on your capacity to receive it and your capacity to apply it. So if I receive, but I don't apply, not so good. If I try to apply, but I don't have much to receive, then that's kind of on the small side of it as well. So it's a two-sided thing. These energetic gifts are to be employed and deployed, not banked and held in reserve someplace. Christina again.
Yeah, you actually just said it, the two of you, as I was going to address. It's the receivership through self-love, which is love of God, which is love of ourselves, and putting that out as the gratitude for, I woke up this morning, it's a sunny day, I have hot water, you know, I'm living in a democracy. it's simple. I have a warm coat. And that gratitude allows for the receiving of more. And I've really seen that. And it's the receivership through self-love and gratitude, and that coming into divine flow. And that increases the familiarity and grows and increases. And that's all that I wanted to say, was the receivership through self-love and gratitude. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else have something you want to share, or a question you want to ask, or a comment? Carol. Need to unmute yourself.
Okay, I unmuted myself. Sometimes I have to mute myself. One of the things that I'm very, very, very grateful is the teachings of JR. And I'm very grateful when I don't know something. It sure gets me into a dither. But what I learned, I'm very grateful for, is that the not knowing gets me into the knowing. The not knowing, for me, when I move into the knowing, gets me on a very different energy field. So what I learned is that when I'm not knowing something, I'm on the word level. When I get to the knowing, I'm on a totally different plane with no words. And what I realized is that from my experience, and I'll give that a hallelujah, is that God and spirit have always delivered. And if I go from the not knowing to the knowing, it's like I've received it. I communicated to God. I actually talked to God and spirit, and it all gets moved into the knowing. So I'm very, 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 very grateful for that. And I pass that back to you, Russell.
Well, thank you. Just in case, as we forget to mention this again, Nat mentioned early on that he and I both do free sessions for people to kind of help you look at issues and whatnot. And we put links into the chat where you can schedule a session if you'd like to do that. Mine's pretty simple. You just go to my website, russellbishop.com, and you click a little link that says contact, and it shows you my calendar, and you book a time. Nat's is very similar. It'll take you directly to his calendar, and you can book a time with Nat. So if that's of interest, please do.
And I'll also put my website up there because, like I said, I do have the newsletter, and you can book it through my website as well. Just the link I put in the chat is a more direct link. It just gets you to the scheduling part right away. And Joan threw up a quote from John Roger: "You will receive in direct proportion to your clarity of vision, your definiteness of purpose, the steadiness of faith, and the depth of your gratitude." I actually created a whole workshop just on those things because, and that last one is so important, the depth of your gratitude. And I always say that's like the last one and the first one.
Nat, you might want to put your scheduling link in again.
Okay, I'll do that. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share or about gratitude that for them, for you?
Tom?
Cindy just unmuted me. Tom Storm from Minnesota. So I'm going to ask for any comments you might have to help me have more gratitude, because I have a challenge with Putin. And, I know JR says, God has everything wired. So I know for some, on some level, everything that's going on in Ukraine is perfect. And maybe Putin, that was his assignment to do that, in spirit. I don't know. But I still find it challenging. And just before we came to the session tonight, I saw where the Russians shot down a $32 million US drone that was supposed to be in international airspace and so on. And it's challenging for me to find gratitude in that. I mean, I'm grateful it's not happening in Duluth, Minnesota, where we live. And I'm so grateful that Cindy and I have such a wonderful life and are healthy and have tons of stuff like that. It's just a challenge for me to find gratitude in what Putin is doing to so many thousands of people. So if you have any suggestions, I'm certainly open to it.
I'll give this one a stab.
Sure, go
And
ahead.
then Russell. First off, what I heard is what you're seeing. Like what are you looking at? You know, what are you watching?
Oh, well, you know, the news.
Yeah. Yeah, you're watching something, and how is that contributing? Is that changing whatever situation is going on over there?
No.
No. And is your, let's look at, because it's you know, I've been thinking about this. Someone had this question the other day, and so I actually ended up writing an article on it, which hasn't come out yet. But if you think of the body of humanity as a body, like if we're just a body and you want health, if you hate some part of the body, if you hate a disease, does that fix the disease? If you're
No,
upset about a disease, does it make it better?
no.
It's like, so if what you're looking at is creating more disturbance in your life, and then you're creating more disturbance in the world, then stop looking at it. It's actually really simple. I mean, my life got a lot better when I stopped looking at the news so much. Start looking at other things that actually make a difference. And I know it seems simplistic, but it's like, well, why do you think that you're watching the news is helping anything? You know, you can find out the news in like probably 3 minutes in the day of reading a few things, you know, and whether you can believe any of it is another question. You know, I've seen some amazing things these days with technology that look really real.
Yeah.
So, you know, the news is designed, it's designed to keep you upset, like, because it engages, right? Like, so, you know, if you have to watch what you're looking at. And, you know, the simplest way to feel better about the world is to stop watching the news, because they're not reporting on, you know, the baby's first steps. They're not reporting on the rainbows behind me and Russell.
Yeah.
They're not reporting on the goodness in your life. And so if there are things that and that's part of it, is we start to feel helpless. You know, when we look at the news, we start to feel helpless because they're sharing with us something that there's nothing we can do. And so then what do? We start like looking to other people who we think have the power to change something, and to like, please change something. And it's like, well, you're just giving over this responsibility now. And it's like, well, what is there things going on in your family or your community or your friends where there's problems? Because maybe there's an opportunity for you to actually, where you can do something and so the point is to make good news. If there's a lot of bad news, what's the thing you need to do? You need to make the news, and you need to make it good. So in your life, you're making news, and maybe that becomes big enough where it actually makes the news and it's good news. So, you know,
Actually,
that's,
I was actually on TV Sunday for good news.
And let me chime in here,
Yeah.
because there's several layers to this. If I go back to the 60s, since you're old enough, Mr.
Sure.
Storm, you will remember, if you're not part of the problem, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Jumping into 21st and 22nd century awareness, JR always said, you're not responsible for the thoughts that come into your head, only the ones you hold on to. In my first book, I wrote about complaint, which I derived from some of the work I've created with Insight. What's a complaint? A complaint is a desire for something to be different that I'm not willing to do anything about, so I'll complain about it. What's anger? Anger, there's only two basic human communications. One is I love you, and the other was, would you please love me? Right down to the gun pointed at somebody, says, you won't love me the way I want, you're gone. So now what do you do with all of that? We don't do a spiritual bypass on whatever's going on in the Ukraine or with drug cartels or with, I mean, there's wars all over the planet on a daily basis. So if you want to continue, if you want to help wars continue, just continue to be upset. Because now what you're doing, this begins to get into the area of quantum physics. Everything is energy. You probably know that. You probably know you cannot destroy energy, you cannot create energy, but you can redirect it. Now, only recently, and I'm going to say now probably in the last 18 months is when I read about this discovery. We know that you can put electrodes on a person's skull and you can measure their brain activity and you can see what's happening in different sections of the brain. Someone, I believe it was in one of the Harvard teaching hospitals, but I can't be certain about that, discovered some device that sits outside the brain, no touching of the body at all, and it can detect your thoughts. And it can detect the changes in your thoughts. Now, it can't tell you what you're thinking, but the point about that is, and so here's a rather stupid question until you maybe gut underneath it. Are you listening to the BBC radio right now?
No.
Is the BBC radio in the room with you right now?
No, it is not.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
But you need a radio tuner to get it.
Got it.
All information is in the room with you right now. Whether it's broadcast by Fox News or CNN or the BBC or anything, it's all there. But you need
your Wi-Fi router, all the internet's in the room.
All of it. You just need a tuner to receive it. Is there spiritual frequency in the room with you right now?
There sure is.
And the only difference between all those others and the spiritual is we are the tuner. So now the question is, what frequency do we wish to attune to? Now, this gets even more powerful. This device that can detect your thoughts, that means we're transmitting a thought that can be detected. So now what's going on with our thoughts and our emotions is these are energetics that we both send, but we also receive. Now, in psychology, it's been known for at least 50 years that I've been studying the field called herd psychology. Somebody gets into a state that's usually upset and somebody else gets it. And as soon as you get 3 or 4 people going into it, it becomes contagious. Well, why? Well, we're not responsible for the thoughts that come into our head, just the ones we hold on to. So if you must look at the news, and I'm not saying be ignorant, but if you're going to watch this stuff, what is your purpose? What is your intention? And what is your process? So you have to watch it, because if you ascribe to the thought that's being broadcast, you will then become in its energetic. And then you become not only a receiver of it, but an amplifier of it being sent back out. Yeah. So now if you want to watch the news, what might you do? Well, one thing you might do is have a candle burning while you do. Another thing you might do is ask, how do I send light to that situation right now? because you may not be able to do anything physically about that, but you can at least contribute positive energy into it. So visualize healing, visualize peace. If you visualize againstness, JR used to say, fighting for peace, and I'll clean it up a little bit. He didn't clean it up when he said it, but I'll clean it up. Fighting for peace is like screwing for virginity. It's not going to work. So the last little bit that I'll say, I mean, there's many, many more, but we all know that karma simply means lessons to be learned. It's not about good or bad. It's just, I did this, I didn't balance it, so now I get to do that to bring it into balance. Well, until you can know the karmic lessons that are involved in any one-to-one relationship, it's going to be pretty hard to judge it. But look at what's going on at that scale. And the best thing we can do is send it love and light, because that's what it needs.
Yes.
So be careful, because these things, as Nat said, these things become addictive and seductive. And what happens, the reason they're addictive, is that we see it, we have a thought about it that says, that's terrible. Our basic self, holder of the emotional charges, goes, oh, terrible, boom, and it shoots up terrible feelings. Now the brain goes, oh my God, this is worse than I thought. And the basic self says, right, boss, worse than I thought. And it sends up more. And then what happens is that as a being, we are addicted on the planet to sensation, whether it's visual, auditory, gustatory, or any other level that we sense. We need sensation so we have that sense of being alive. Well, there's nothing quite so powerful as the sensation of fear and anger.
Yeah.
Because they're very noticeable, but they begin to become a biochemical addiction of their own. So I would just say, best thing you can do is send it the light. The worst thing you can do is watch it a lot.
Thank you.
And if you want to get the news, I mean, I read this years and years ago in a book, and it's like, well, if you don't want to like be ignorant of what's going on, talk to some people. They're watching the news. Like, talk to other people and be like, and then you're talking to people rather than just watching what the news is putting out. And just to add on to what Russell said and to what I was mentioning before, is the body of humanity, if you're just a cell, be a healthy cell.
Yeah.
Cindy was taking notes for me, so thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, we've recorded this too, so we'll make it available to you later.
Okay.
And there was another thing, just being around John Roger, who could see the karma of some of these world events and politics and things of that nature, is that there would be things that would happen, or people elected or whatever, and I'd be like, how could this be? And he would just be like he would tell me what it was, and that I didn't see the higher thing that was going on. When he'd actually explain it to me, sometimes I'd still be like, well, I don't like it, but like, okay, if you say so. And then as things would play out, it would be like, oh my God, he was right. Like that person did have to be there because the other person couldn't handle it or whatever. And it's like, wow. So there, and that's not to just go, oh, well, it's all perfect and spiritual bypass. But in a sense, it is to go, well, there may be another purpose of learning if this place is a classroom. And, if disease is kind of the lack of loving, as Russell was talking about, the two things about loving, it's like, well, if disease is a lack of loving, then it's like, well, what do we need? We need more loving. So, send the light. Don't have if it is an addictive thing, maybe replace it with something that's, that can be stimulating, because you'll like any addiction, you'll need something to stimulate in that way. So find something that's going to be more uplifting to you in your life to stimulate where you, and also the nice thing about when you start, being of service in your community or in your family or to others, to actually make a difference in that way, is that it's something you stop feeling helpless to what's going on, and you're now making a difference.
Thank you.
Looks like Russell went offline for a minute. Is there any other questions anyone want to share? Anything else? Yeah. Lenya, you can unmute yourself. How do you say your name?
Elena,
Elena.
you got it. Yeah.
All right.
So I've noticed I do a lot of gratitude just throughout the day and throughout my life. It's just really very present for me. But I find that I'm also beginning to say more and more. And thank you for the opportunities to learn and grow. So like the stuff that comes up that I don't like, to be grateful for that, so that I get the learning really quickly and easily. And I don't know, it's just that has started kind of folding itself into my my process. And if you have any additional comments about that, that would be cool. It's like the challenges, it is all these things that it's like, oh, try this. When something happens that I don't like, but to have the gratitude for that too.
I mean, I think what you said is your experience is key, in that the gratitude does assist in your learning and moving through the things more gracefully or easier.
Yeah.
Even though there's difficulty. And I think that, it's there are difficulties in this world, and there's difficulties in our lives. And there's always the opportunity of whether we're going to be grateful or not. I just think of, there was moments around JR, whether it was a plane that was delayed or whatever, that some people might, get their panties in a twist, or I don't know what that term, whatever, they may get all upset, the bee in the bonnet, all upset about it. And, he would be making jokes and having a good time. So it really does come to like, well, the plane's delayed, it's the difficulties are here, it's happening, so what are you going to do? Are you going to be upset about it, or are you going to make a joke? Are you going to have fun?
Yeah.
And it does make it easier. That's the funny thing, is like you said, it makes the difficulties actually less difficult. I mean, even if they're difficult, it makes them easier to get through and get the
Right.
value from.
Yeah. And you just said something that reminded me, for quite a long time, I'm not noticing this so much right now, but for quite a long time, I think this is from, I don't know, one of the books that Paul Kay helped or co-authored or something, but he said, I love this, but I used to say, I'm loving this. So I might start out saying, I'm loving this, but within 2 or 3 repetitions, 3 or 4, I start chuckling because it's so incongruous. And, here I am saying I'm loving this to this crappy situation. But I start laughing about it. And all of a sudden it's like the perspective shifts, and the gratitude is present and the loving is present. So it's really,
here's a little clue about what's going on with that. Say those words again.
I'm loving this.
How many words are there?
3.
No. Say those words again.
I'm loving this.
I am loving this. That's
Okay, 4. Okay. All right.
What are the first 3 words?
I am loving. Yeah.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
Now, as you say, I am loving this, the message that's getting in is I am loving.
Mm-hmm.
And it awakens the loving energy. Now, whether you love this, there's a difference between liking and loving. There's a difference between liking and accepting, and there's a difference between liking, accepting, and gratitude. And my favorite simple example is if you ever had a flat tire on your car, you don't have to like the flat tire, but you better accept it. But accept it doesn't mean, ooh, isn't this nice? It just means I have a flat tire. Now it points me in direction. JR always used the term action. What's the action? Well, you recognize what's present, you accept what's present, now you act on it. So now you can change the flat tire. And if you change the flat tire with damn thing, you'll scrape your knuckles and all kinds of bad things will happen. But if you just go, well, thank God I have a spare or a jack or a AAA card or something. And you'll move through it with more grace than you might have otherwise. And then that becomes the lesson back inside. Remember, the Ron and Mary used the phrase in USM, how you relate to the issue is the issue. And the version I use in my book was how you respond to the issue is the issue. And they're very similar. But remember, it's our relationship inside that matters most.
Right.
So if I am loving,
Yeah.
just say that and you'll relax inside
That-
who you are.
Thank you. That's a cool additional twist on that. What's going on there? Thank you.
Well, see, we have to remember that, again, I mean, this may seem so trite, but it's more profound than anything you could imagine. Did all of this come from God? That's a binary question. It's either yes or no.
Yes. Yes.
It all came from God. Does God love all of its creation?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, then, as Jared would say, hey, this is all perfect, Russell. You just don't like it that way.
Yeah.
So we don't have enough perspective usually to see what are all the interconnections. But if I simply go into I am loving, I am the light. Remember that old Bhajan?
Yeah.
So if I am the light, it makes all things transparent. It moves me into the positive energetic flow. But remember that energetic flow, he always used to say, there's negative and positive, but not bad and good. It's just the direction. So if we flow from the negative to the positive, wow, that's an uplifting experience. But if we're flowing from the positive to the negative, well, it's not so uplifting. Well, it's all the same energy. It's all the same line. We simply have to adjust the flow. And the I am loving. I am light. I am one with the Holy Spirit. God and I are one. Anything like that just begins to attune us to the way the energy flows. And all things are, quote, healed. Not that they were ever injured to begin with. So this is very simple stuff, but simple ain't necessarily easy. So thanks for bringing that up, Elena.
Want to move into the meditation, Russell, unless anyone has a final question or sharing?
Sure, and it's 5:29 here, so it's coming up on when we said we'd be done. But I can do the meditation right now if you'd like. Is it? Would you like that? Okay. So let me prepare myself for that and do the right clicks this time. Funny boy that I am. So just let yourself notice whatever you're experiencing right now in the moment. And as you hear the music, just let yourself ride on the sound. And let yourself sink ever more deeply to where you're sitting. Notice whatever's present with you. any thoughts, any concerns, whatever it all is, just place it in the light and give it up to the divine. And with your next breath in, breathe in the light. Let the light illumine all of you. And as you breathe out, just let go of anything you no longer need. Anything that may be of concern, any upset, any disturbance. And as you let that go and breathe in that light of healing. Bring in the loving of God. And allow that light to illumine any dark places. And as you breathe out, just let go. And breathe in and let God. And let yourself become aware now of the quality of your life. Where do you live? What is it you have to be grateful for about that place? Your home? Could be an apartment, a house, a room you rent. Just notice it, and that place takes care of you as you take care of it. Notice the protection that's provided to you. And is there something there where you live that you sometimes take for granted, or for which you're actually grateful? It could be where you sleep. It could be a shower or a bath, food in the refrigerator. How about others? Do you live with other people? What is there to be grateful for? Do you have friends? Even a single friend, one who cares for you. Can you imagine expressing gratitude to that person? It could be as simple as, thank you for your grace or your love, or thank you for your smile. And as it has been said, if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, it's more than enough. As you think back over your life, have there been difficult circumstances? Could be financial, could be with economies and finances and jobs. Whatever there may have been, where are you now? Are the conditions better, worse, about the same? But regardless of how the circumstances may have changed, notice how you are inside of you. And you may also notice that who you are has been the constant throughout. And so perhaps being grateful to yourself, for your soul, for your awareness and awakening into the light. So now let yourself become aware of when the light and you became as one. When did you notice? How does it present itself to you? Did someone introduce you to the light? Who helped you awaken to the loving? And maybe you can recall the first moment for which that light became apparent to you. And perhaps you followed that light, and the light illumined your path. And in this moment, can you send a prayer of gratitude to whomever helped you awaken to that light? As you send that prayer out, notice that it is also received. As you are grateful to you, to who you truly are, to your soul for awakening. And perhaps you can express gratitude to your mind, to your emotions, to your body, for doing what they can to care for you. And for stepping aside to allow the light to shine ever more deeply. And can you thank yourself for how you share the light, how you share the loving? And are there others you know who could use your light? Not necessarily in an overt way, but it could be. Maybe there's someone who could just use your prayer. Perhaps there's someone who would benefit by the grace and the light of your physical presence. And can you find a place inside of you that is grateful for even these small opportunities to serve? And are there others who serve you? Maybe some who know that they serve. Maybe others who don't. But yet you experience the grace and the peace and the love of their light shining toward you. And simply rejoice in the light that surrounds you, fills you, and protects you. And can you appreciate how the light lifts you in times of need? And be grateful that the light is ever present when you turn toward it. And of course, turning toward it means turning inside. And so perhaps you can be grateful for your spiritual practice, for your meditations or spiritual exercises, or whatever process you use to attune to your living light. And you can just let that light continue to grow, expand, and radiate all through you. And I'll just give you a moment to bask in that beautiful warmth, that light and love of who you are, your soul, and your connection to the divine. And now reminding ourselves that as we give, we receive. Take a moment now and think of who you know who could use the light sent to them. And send that light now to family, to friends, to people in other countries, to people suffering anywhere. Just see them enfolded in light, being blessed and cared for in ways beyond understanding. And as you send the light, it is returned. And we are indeed blessed. And so thank yourself. Thank the light. For indeed the blessings already are. Well, it's been a blessing and an honor to be able to share this with you today. I'm sure Nat and I both wish you great peace, and we hope this has been of some value.
Thank you all for coming.